So first off, I asked, do you change up your routine for summer? And what's interesting is about half of you, 54% of you said yes, just a few tweaks. And a good third of you said, nah, my routine is pretty consistent. And only 8% of you said major overhaul needed, which I'm like, that's great. You really don't need to completely nuke your routine between seasons.
Yeah.
Though I do think a lot of publications out there are still make it sound like
and marketing.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So I think that's great.
Where did you fall?
I am in that pretty consistent bucket.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm the one that's just a few tweaks. So
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. We fit the poll as well.
Yeah.
And then I followed that up with, if you do tweak your routine during the summer, what step do you usually change up? And this one wasn't as surprising to me. Only 3% of y'all change up your cleanser routine, which I find really interesting because, yeah, if you think about a clean skin is a clean skin, like there's no changes needed.
Yeah.
But I did see a lot of articles out there that's like the perfect summer cleanser. Like, if it's a cleanser that works, it's a good cleanser year round.
Good point.
Vast majority of you change up the moisturizer step, and I suspect this is where Victoria falls in as well.
So I think if I could have two, it would have, funny enough, would be cleanser and moisturizer. Moisturizer, definitely, I would have chosen that one. But cleanser, because during summer, the sunscreen use is so heavy that I do feel like skin gets so congested that it's actually, weirdly enough, the time I would double cleanse, which I feel like is the opposite of what dry skin people do, which is they'd rather do probably the cleansing oil, cleansing balms during the winter. But yeah, I don't know. That was the only thing, which is a little odd, but it's just after the sunscreen challenge, I've never more realized that I should start looking into those guys.
Bless Victoria. She volunteered her skin for some very
Tinted,
little heavy-handed
Y'all kick
formula.
my skin. Y'all kick my skin's ass.
About 12% of you said you will tweak up your active skin. Good 20% of you said other or nothing at all. And the people that fall in this bucket, most of the DMs I got about this is, nah, nothing. You wouldn't change your routine during summer. So yeah, let's dive right into it. We kind of want to touch on these steps, why you might consider changing it during the hotter month, and also if there's any science around this.
Totally. So first things first, we got to talk about step one, which is cleanser. And like Gloria kind of hinted at, you really, if you have a good one, you really don't need to change too much here.
Yeah. But like Victoria, as Victoria was telling us about her journey with pouring into double cleansing, which I know she doesn't like doing because of the tinted sunscreen.
And you have to do, it's an extra step.
Yeah, for me, this is like kind of a lifestyle thing if there's any changes at all. Because during the summer, I tend to be outside a lot more, sometimes go on hikes, just more active in general. Something about going on hiking dusty LA make you feel extra gross. And that is when I find myself like being very rigorous with cleansing afterwards.
For sure. And also, this is going off tangent, but in my journey of double cleansing, I know balms are meant to be like travel friendly, but in terms of like regular lifestyle, I find them to be not as or I guess more cumbersome than oils because you're usually double cleansing at night, right? And I'm usually double cleansing when I'm showering. And when you have to open a balm in a shower, it doesn't feel great. And then like you have to get a spoon or your hands that are wet. And I just feel like there's something about the cleansing balm that's just not as easy to work with.
Yeah, for sure. And I know like most balms have more of a residue than even oil cleansers, which Victoria loves.
And by love, she means really doesn't like, So the second step of cleansing with blank slate is like extra vigorous.
Yep. The aggression definitely comes in.
Yeah. Which is probably not a good thing.
Yeah.
If you remember our cleansing topic last time, but yes.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a great cleanser, definitely check out our cleanser episode or our cleanser blog post. This is not a category I would really think you need to shop seasonally for, but might just tweak up based on situational.
Totally. All right. Step two, moisturizer. And this is probably the biggest focus during summer.
The real meat of the episode.
Yeah.
You get a lot of articles that come out talking about how, like this is a refreshing moisturizer just for the summer month. And all this focus is on, I think, more watery hydration rather than a hardcore moisturizer. So first things first, I got really curious about how obviously when the weather is different, it's hotter, maybe more humid depending on where you're at, the sun is out, is your skin actually different? And I looked up a bunch of studies and found this kind of interesting analysis that was done in Europe. They tracked 25 female subjects, so not a large study, but still gave us some interesting insights. They evaluated their legs first during winter and again during summer of the exact same subject. So it's one of the few studies I could find that tracked the same people and not like a large cohort of survey-based studies. Barrier functions was determined by measuring transepidermal water loss or TOOL, and skin hydration dryness were evaluated by corneometer. And visual grading was also done. What was really interesting is they also sampled the stratum corneum and did like a chemical analysis on the composition thereof. So all that to say, the quick takeaway that I find really interesting is this is not super surprising to me, but skin is definitely, the SC is definitely going through more during winter. You tend to be drier. And what's interesting to me is they also looked at inflammation markers, and your skin tends to be more inflamed during winter as well. And what was really interesting is this isn't just reflected in higher transepidermal water loss or lower skin hydration. Your skin lipids is actually also a little different between the seasons.
Totally. And I find that it's now, I do think people's reaction towards this may be like, does that mean I need to think about the lipid ratio differently in winter and summer? We would definitely say no. You know, this is more of just your skin adapting to different climates. And if you can refer back to our skin barrier episode a couple episodes ago, where we kind of talked about how your skin is constantly modifying based on climate and even humidity. And because of that, I think if you remember, we talked about how like your skin can actually be fooled into a certain amount of evaporation and water loss because of the change in humidity in these kind of like climate environments. So anyways, it's just something for people to understand. It's just the nature of skin and skin's ability to adapt, because as much as we do treat skin like this very fragile thing that needs to be constantly pampered and cocooned, it is an organ. It's living and has the ability to adapt, you know, as necessary. Yeah.
I also love that this analysis kind of gives it a little bit more weight of the notion that during winter you need that more protective moisturizer. Whereas summer, you can maybe, depending on your skin situation, you can ease off and use, generally speaking, a lighter moisturizer.
Which is what I do.
Yes.
I'm just going to put it out there. That's exactly what I do. Yeah. So, I mean, on top of that, Laura also found a study, quite a tiny one that was done in Switzerland. And they just wanted to see what would basically happen if you cut moisturizers out of your life entirely and what skin would do. And I did really want to touch on this just a little bit, just because what the study did was they took subjects of various ages and had them stop moisturizers completely and then see. Basically, the idea is how long would it take skin to adapt? And so, you know, kind of on the topic of adaptation, they found that it took roughly about 3 weeks to a month for the skin to recover. And the reason why we wanted to share this data point is not necessarily to say that, does that mean I don't need a moisturizer? No, not necessarily. The idea is that if you are someone that is going through maybe some skin changes, some dryness, suddenly your skin barrier doesn't seem to be super happy, this 1 month framework is a good time allotment to give your skin to fully kind of adjust to whatever you're doing in your skincare routine, or even just giving it time to kind of adapt to those changes, which I feel like is why when people travel, then it's people suddenly are feeling like, oh my God, my skin is not happy and has not been happy for the entirety of the trip.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it is what it is. And it does happen. And I think this is also an angle you can look at. You think about how long does it take for you to evaluate if a moisturizer is right for your skin. I will say in the study, something else that's kind of interesting and not surprising is that when these study subjects went cold turkey on their moisturizer, people who are younger recover a lot faster from that initial shock, and dryness symptoms tends to be milder than older people. So if you feel like your skin is having a harder time adjusting to seasons, to traveling, it's probably not your imagination. It does happen. And all I have to say is, you know, like during summer, if you are experiencing these changes, just kind of keep calm. It is not time to completely toss out your moisturizer. Yeah. So say it's going to winter and it's drier, then you can maybe consider adding an oil or a balm to kind of help it transition a little bit. Yeah. Or during summer, if your skin is a little oilier, keep calm and just, you know, light tweaks. Yeah,
I would say for oily skin, one thing I think Gloria and I will talk about this later, but it's like usually I need to dial back. And so in the most humid of climates, I can actually get away with just using a humectant forward product. So that's kind of the way to think about it, is just you're just dialing it back ever so slightly. You're not completely nuking your moisturizer routine.
Right. Yeah. And since skin barrier is doing, generally speaking, a little bit better during summer. And of course, the study that we just mentioned talked about skin natural recovery even if you go cold turkey on moisturizer. There are still going to be a few people that's like, well, maybe I don't need one during summer. And we also found a few studies to kind of suggest counterpoints on that.
Yeah, definitely. So I think Gloria found this study that was done in Japan. It's about 44 subjects. So they wanted to use they call it pseudoceramide, which Gloria and I don't know what to do with that, but we're going to move on. But anyways, it's a specific moisturizer with pseudoceramide and eucalyptus extract for Japanese patients. But the focus here is not necessarily that it's about this combination, but it's about the tests they conducted, where they wanted to look at skin that either used this formula versus didn't use this formula through summer months and see basically what skin would do. And the results are actually pretty interesting.
Yeah. So during summer in Japan, the weather tends to be pretty hot and humid. And the subject did show an improvement even without moisturizer. It's just the natural reaction to this type of environment. But it did show that with the cream, erythema itchiness were significantly improved only in the treated group. So you can think of it as, you know, in terms of your humectants, occlusive, like the core functionality of a moisturizer is like, it's there, it will help, but your skin is naturally already better. But kind of the frills of everything else, like your barrier helpers, your ceramides, those things play a more important role to help your skin stay on top of it when you get to the fall season as well.
I also thought it was interesting because they did a skin hydration study. They did a tool on the forearm. They also saw that, you know, only with the treated group did it increase significantly. So I almost felt like the summary here was that in summer months, skin fares better with dry skin. But if you still want to tackle the kind of core issues of dry skin, you still need a moisturizer. That was kind of like my takeaway. And the reason why is because they talk about, you know, without application, scaling and dryness still improve. But how they assess that is actually a visual assessment. I kind of looked into it more, and it's usually done by, you know, an expert grader, and we'll show the scale here of what this visual assessment of skin dryness looks like. And it's basically like flaking. You're looking at scaling, flaking, and you just want to see less of that kind of like that visual look. But I feel like the tool measurement is what Gloria and I still really value here. So it's saying that, you know, moisturizers during summer can be helpful, but there is definitely, it's normal for people to feel like they don't need it during the summer, especially in humid climates.
Yeah. So to sum up, immediate hydration need might not be as high, but barrier care needs stay consistent throughout summer.
Yep. Great.
Cool.